What happened?
Brothers, what's going on, man?
Yeah, I was over here rocking.
What up?
How everybody feeling? We survived the storm apocalypse out here in Texas, man. How y'all faring out there in Cali?
Sunshine.
Yeah, I don't
for y'all, man.
We don't want to talk
bad for y'all. We feeling bad for y'all.
Hey, I got some residual trauma. I got a hoodie and a beanie on, man. We out here freezing out here. We back though.
Right. We back, man. I think the crazy thing about something like this, man, it shows people the importance of, essentially, there is a mayor who made an ignorant comment about out here, and he was in, I think it's not Colorado, but it's spelled Colorado, it's Colorado or something like that, Texas.
Yeah.
And he's basically telling the people, you on your own. And I think although the way he said it and the way he delivered it was problematic of somebody in a leadership position, I do think he has a point about, so sometimes we get so far away from our own ability to take care of ourselves that we rely on the government for everything. If you think about back in the day, people always kind of had wood in their homes, just because if the power go out, at least you got some wood for your fireplace, or they had, water or non-perishable food items and things of that nature, to where if something happens, you have the capacity to take care of yourself. So I think that serves as a wake up that in cases where the government fails you, you have to have the capacity to take care of yourself. Today in our episode, we're talking about things that are good for the culture from each of our perspectives or perspective. And I think sometimes that's part of the conversation is, do we have the capacity to take care of ourselves in absence of government assistance? And that means, do we arm ourselves, right? In the cases somebody come up in your house and the government won't come to help you, the police won't come to help you, do we make sure that we're educating our kids? Or do we make sure we're doing the things that our ancestors did to make sure that we got the help and the resources that we needed in absence of the government ability to take care of us?
That's a big topic, man. I don't know, we lost a lot of stuff with our elders, like the ability to farm or grow our own produce, or garden, or be a mechanic. Like a lot of the stuff, I would say, like my stepmother's father, the dude can do everything. He's a carpenter, he can cook, he can fix a car, he can do all this stuff. We got our niches, and we kind of niche based now. We ain't all inclusive with everything, because you okay, I'm just go pursue this one thing. But back in the day, you had to be well versed in a lot of different things. And I think we lost a lot of that as time progresses, but we definitely got to get back to some growing our own food. You know what I'm saying? Whatever plant-based, whatever it is that you want, we got to get back to some of that.
I definitely agree. Go ahead, P.
Oh, no. I was going to say, I completely agree. And as we get more into this topic, man, when I took this trip to Africa, it really changed my perspective on a lot of different things, because it's so, we always talk about systemic changes and how things, affect us here in America because of how the system was created. But man, in Africa, they in some of the same type of situations that we're facing here in America. So it's funny how it's just, man, is it, and this is where we were going. Is it about just the culture of our people? Is it just, ingrained with place? It's so much that I saw in Africa that transitions to here, or that can be brought here, and it's the same situation. So I'm with Jeff. I mean, I went around about it, but I'm with Jeff. Is we got to really arm ourselves in so many ways, and you are able to grow your food. You're able to take care of your family. You're able to manufacture your own goods, because after a while, man, the government don't really look out for you as much as you think.
Kanye said it.
What did you say?
But no, I'm with y'all on that. I feel like just thinking about it, eventually the point or the goal is that we want to move out there to the South too, Texas in general. And when I was looking at what was happening, I was, I didn't really pay attention to it too much. And then I start realizing, I'm like, this is a lot worse than what I thought it was. And so, you start thinking like, okay, we need a generator. That's not necessarily things you think about immediately living in California. It's like, oh, I need a generator and stuff like that. Or even when you have friends in California, I got a couple of them. Y'all know Devin, my homeboy Walker I used to work with at my old police department. They like doomsday preppers and they live in California. And you'd be like, what do you have all this shit for? Like, you don't need this shit. But you start realizing, like, actually, you never know when you're going to need it. And for our family and friends that live in Texas, like, you do need that stuff. Like, that's really, really important to be prepared for stuff like that, because those things do happen. And what happens out there is a little different than California. We may have fires and need, to keep our air clean and stuff like that. But you guys need extra food supplies. You need those canned goods. You need to have all those doomsday prepper type things, because it can get real, and it can get real for weeks, So just prayers and blessings to everybody out there, because I know a whole bunch of people in different areas from all over Texas that was posting different stuff, getting flights delayed and canceled. I saw a lot of stuff, So, man, I'm glad y'all made it through.
Yeah, bro, it got a little rough, and I think part of what we've tried to do here with Braspective, at least for the episodes that we have recorded during Black History Month, I think is try to bring in some important topics that we feel are important in our community. Last episode we had Jeffrey Wilson in, who's an attorney who did a good job of highlighting credit and ways in which we can build our credit, because I also think that is a way that hinder us sometimes with business ownership, home ownership, things of that nature, our credit. And then now we have just episodes and our aspects and things that are important for our culture. I think being able to recognize there has to be the capacity to take care of ourselves in absence of help. Right now, some of the doomsday prepper things, that could be an extreme, because they got the basement stocked with this water for years and all that. And I think sometimes, when you got stuff like that, that can make you a target, if we was in some type of anarchy. But I do think having stuff like that, having water and non-perishables and things of that nature in your home, we talked about the need of a generator, just how naive we are about these situations, bro. We got a generator. It's in storage, right?
Yeah.
So why would I have a generator in storage? You don't even think about it, because you're like, man, I've had this for years. I ain't even use it. It's still in the box. I'm gonna put it in storage. I'm not gonna just sit it around the house and I'll have it in the garage because it's in the way. Well, you never know what you need until you need it. You know what I'm saying? So making sure you have space allocated within your home for these things that, hey, you never know when you're gonna need it, but you definitely want to have it when you need it. And so, that's good. Now, P, you kind of glossed over something. It's for the culture. It's Black History Month, man. You went to Africa. Tell us about the experience.
So the first thing I want to tell you is America is not always where we want to be at times. Things happen and we're like, man, this equality is ridiculous. But at the same time, and being in Africa and seeing what they have to deal with every day, and I think it's just ingrained in them that you gotta push through that. Some things that when I came back, I was like, man, I appreciate the fact that even though America's not great, as equitable for everybody, I still have the ability to voice my opinion about what changes need to take place. And I say that because in Africa, it seems like you would think that the people would come together more, and it's the engagement would be consistently the same, for all Black people in Africa, but it's not. Like, there is a big divide. There's rich, and then there's people who are struggling. When I say struggling, like, they don't have many means or resources to even get out of their situation. So that's where I'm going and saying, coming back to America, I'm like, at least I have the ability to voice my opinion and try to make those changes. So that's one. And then the other thing is, I stopped at many different stores to either get gas or get, some quick things. And you know who owned majority of them stores that I stopped at? It was like your Pacific Islanders or those of Asian descent, or there was like Arabic or Pakistani owners. So when I was talking to the people that no, that from Nairobi, like what's going on? They were like, man, even though we are trying to eventually start to get our wealth or get the ability to buy things, there's still such a gap that only a certain people are able to purchase and provide resources to everybody. And it's just like here in America, it's not equitable. It's not given to everybody. So that's another thing that was eye-opening. Even in Africa, they run into the same, our ability to purchase, our ability to have our own stores is still not there. Like they're still working to get there. And this is Africa. So I was like,
Right.
man. So for the culture, I would say, the things that we're talking about are widespread. Like this need for us, not need, but this ability for us to get our own and start to really give back to our communities. It's everywhere. It's not just here in America. It goes all the way into Africa. And that's where I was saying, man, is it just something that took place that is just, how can I start? Once we got colonized, I can say that is it just something that started from then and just continues to roll. It's just crazy, man. So Africa was real eye-opening because you'll see that disparity is not only here in America, but also in our home country. So it's just something I've been thinking about.
The crazy thing about Africa and, specifically South Africa and apartheid, and people not realizing, I may be wrong, in the dates, but, apartheid didn't really end until the mid 90s, right? Early 90s, mid 90s. So what you had is with apartheid, blacks couldn't own land, blacks couldn't own businesses. Essentially it was illegal for blacks with money to help poor blacks, right? It was illegal to help somebody in need, right? They used a lot of, so you got to remember, apartheid studied slavery.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? In order to kind of have an idea of how to control the minds of people, right? So apartheid literally used the books of slavery in order to have a better understanding of kind of how to control people. And so they put up a lot of divisive techniques in there with, you can't give aid to people, blacks can't do this. There was a lot of tribal issues. Certain tribes had certain reputations, other tribes. So in colorism, right? You could be black and you could be colored, all these things where they tried to divide people down to the smallest things that cause people to kind of hard to come together. Because if I'm saying we are different and I'm pointing out we're different because we're from a different tribe, or because, essentially I'm dark skinned. So, in that time, I wouldn't be afforded the same privileges that somebody like UP, who may have a lighter complexion. All three of y'all got a lighter complexion. Y'all may be viewed differently simply because of the skin color, right? So I think there's aspects of that it has permeated throughout the world, in a sense of the hatred that is shown everywhere towards black people, even in the continent, the countries in which black people came from. It shows you it's a lot of hate towards black people. But I also think that sometimes, again, we get in our own ways, because how often do we rise up and pull somebody up with us? I think that's a struggle everywhere in the world, is somebody wanting to be the person on top and not the individualism instead of the socialism aspect of taking care of your community.
And that's the part for the culture I wanted to speak on, is that even though we're trying to do what we can for our community here, thinking globally is important, because they have some great resources out there that people just don't tap into. And it's because, like you're just saying, everybody's not like, oh, let me reach out and then pull this person forward, because by doing so, I'm not going to only help myself, but I'm going to help others. And so I think that's one thing for the culture, is our continual understanding to look out for our brother or the next person that you're trying to assist. It's beyond important right now.
But that's just it right there. That's really on this topic for the culture, and we can get into all the rest of them that we got going right now. For the culture, I mean, you talked about helping, essentially being illegal for black people to help other black people rise. Shit, I mean, we see that now. You pair somebody wealthy or someone that's not of a high class with someone that's a drug dealer. for, or whatever the case may be. You start trying to build businesses and things like that. You got to worry about people all in your business, about taxes, money laundering, and things like that, instead of taking those opportunities and just coming together to create legitimate businesses. Like, and then when I think about that, it's like, that's sad, because you think about, what did prohibition do for other cultures and things like that? It's essentially what they did is they took illegal trafficking of alcohol at the time and turned a lot of families into dynasties that went on to go for centuries and centuries and still going now. So we know that whether you're in Africa or America, trying to build those relationships and foster those relationships between the rich and the poor, especially in our community, is going to come with some disparities, especially when you try to make those type of duos and pairsons and tag teams. You want to put the rich with the people that may have beautiful minds, but may have taken some chances and make it legitimate. You're going to probably run into some issues. So y'all was on the head with that one, but we got a lot of topics for the culture today.
It's crazy that you brought that up, Tav, about kind of prohibition and how that created generational wealth for certain communities. Obviously, people who didn't look like us. I don't know if you guys watched the documentary yet on Netflix, Crack. And it's a really good documentary because it showed how, people don't recognize and understand, and we're going to get into this, that the rates in the 50s and the 60s of black families married and white families were about the same. It was about the same, right? Now I think, it's like, 25% of black families get married, to where it's like 50% of whites, right? So they're like doubling us. But in the 50s and 60s, it was about the same. Well, what happened is, you watch the documentary and you watch how the crack era really targeted black people, right? Where the majority of the crack users were people coming from the suburbs, right? In the 80s, we have been conditioned to believe that it was black people out here all in these streets using crack. That is not true. Now, yes, in the inner city, there was a crack epidemic, but a lot of the people who were using the drugs were coming down because it was a cheaper product than cocaine, right? So they were coming in using it, and it destroyed our community. It destroyed, you got a lot of black men who were out of the homes. You had a lot of black mothers getting addicted, not able to take care of kids. Kids got into the system. You got the crack baby era. You got just so much damage because of that. It shows, man, that, one of the problems that I have sometimes is, right, they say the greatest thing that the devil did was convince people that he didn't exist, right? And I said the greatest thing that that the man does is create black people that the things that are good for them, they don't need. We don't need to be married. Oh man, forget that marriage stuff, man. That's just the government, man. That's a contract in the government, man. They have you split your wealth. We don't need to go to college. Oh man, forget college, man. You can make so much money without getting an education. Don't worry about Sally Mae. Don't worry about that. We don't get our vaccinations, right? Oh man, we don't get this. We're not going to get the COVID-19 vaccination because, man, it shows that people are still getting sick. Well, look, you any commercial that come on the news for Tylenol, that there's side effects, right? You want to talk about black genocide? You want to talk about the ability to remove black people off this earth? Hey, let's convince black people that the COVID vaccine, there's something wrong with the COVID vaccine, and it's going to cause long-term damage to them, right? Let's convince them. Now, granted, we got the Tuskegee study, right, with syphilis. We got Henrietta Lacks, right, all that. So we have a distrusting relationship with the medical community in the world. And there's a lot of other examples with that, women having their cervix burnt and things of that nature so they can't have kids. There's a lot of distrust that we have. But when you start to look at the numbers and the people who are getting it, I always say this: you want to know what's good for you? Watch what the rich white people do, right? If they getting it, then there's aspects of us that should know. We can do our own research. And for certain reasons, my son, he may not be able to get the vaccine because a lot of times in those vaccinations, they have things in there that he's allergic to. He's allergic to eggs and garlic and dairy and soy and all that stuff. But for the majority of us, if we're worried about the white people trying to take us, not even the white people, because it's not white people, it could be all people. If we're worried about people trying to take us out, we can't convince ourselves that something that's good for us is bad for us, because now we're taking ourselves out. And I think sometimes we got to change our minds on what's good for our community and what's bad for our community, and stop making decisions without education. No matter what you take in life, there's always going to be side effects. No matter what you take in life, it's never going to help 100% of people. That's not how stuff works. 95% is a good number, right? So I think we have to be mindful of that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think some Dewan missed about the crack epidemic Netflix series was they talked about how it just infected us. So what the news put out was all the crack babies is black babies. They weren't even crack babies, bro. They were just people that came from poverty that was having issues. And it wasn't that they was addicted. The kids were born addicted to crack. So they made it like it seemed like, okay, these kids that's born in the late 80s, early 90s, these kids are about to be insane because their mind is so fried on crack, which
I was born in 83.
I was born in 84, but we was in the middle of it. But what happened was they put out this perspective that be aware that the next black generation of people is going to be a problem because they all were addicted to crack. So it was a whole thing that was set up by the media, by the government, etc., to set us back, and it was crazy to see it. As we know, coming from where we come from, but a lot of something that Dewan touched on that I guess I'll talk about too is stuff when we're talking about not doing things that are good for us. He talked about marriage, he talked about education, and it don't have to be formal education. I think people get construed education as you got to go to college. College is fun. Like all of us went to college. It was the best time of our life aside from high school. You meet a lot of people, and that's where you get to meet the people that are not like you. You go and meet the rich white kid. You go and meet the chick that's from the other side of the country. You go and meet all these people that you're never going to cross paths with if you just stay in your city. Imagine if we all just stayed in our city. Taft stayed in Pittsburgh, Pete stayed in Jersey, me and Dewan just stayed in Vallejo. We would have never seen half the things we've seen in this world. You got to expose yourself to new things. You know what I'm saying? Paris just said he went to Africa. I went to China. Like we done been to the Dominican. We done been all these places and see how people live, and it's damn near similar to kind of what's going on here. Everybody's struggling, and we think about how bad it is for us and how bad it is for our country. Third world poor is a different kind of poor.
Yeah.
If we got the ability to go out there and work, educate ourselves, whether it be formal education or with books or whatever, do it because that's the way you win. And then also I wanted to, before you go, Tav, I was watching, it's a shameless plug, but I like that show, I Am Athlete. They had a financial advisor guy on there. We talking about billionaire money. We talking about what happens with us is we try to go back and help with our money. The money supposed to trickle down to your kids, your family, or whoever. When you get your bread, you can't take care of them. Mama them good. They're going to be all right. They're going to want to stay in the same house, do whatever. You want to have that money trickle down to your kids, your grandkids, and whoever. That's what we got to do. That's what we got to do.
No, I was just going to add, like you said, something that is good for the culture is just getting your passport stamped. You know what I'm saying? Like, and going to see those things. Just like you said, all these different experiences that you see when you go out of the country. I mean, it's humbling and motivating at the same time. You can be on vacation, but at the same time, get that fire you need to be like, okay, when I get back, I got to do this, this, and that. Because although I know it can get bad or I'm struggling or I have different things happen to me here, it's nothing like what you see in those other places. And then, I always watch I Am Athlete, I Am Woman every week. And they were talking about some stuff, and like you said, when you talk about trying to buy those houses for your mom and different things like that. I mean, and you say your moms want to stay in the same house because typically that does happen at the same time. It's like we as a Black culture and people have to start thinking about some of that survivor's remorse that builds up. I've been having that conversation in general. It's like survivor's remorse is real, especially for us. If we ball out, we feel like, ooh, we more like equal opportunity. I ain't going to get $20 million or $100 million and be like, yeah, well, them Braspective dude. You know what I'm saying? Like Dewan say it all the time. If he hit it big or something like that, he makes sure everybody's houses is getting paid for, or he giving everybody a little bit of a lump sum to do their thing. I'm just putting that out over there to make sure we hold him to it and we got it. No, but I'm saying though, that is a part of like that whole thing that we talking about. It's not just pulling back, but a portion of that is survivor's remorse. And we have to learn how to control that better in our community because our mindset is how dare I ball out this far ahead of all of my people and not make sure that we're on the same page. I mean, at the end of the day, that's important is to make sure that we all reaching back and making sure that we're looking out for each other. But how we do it is very important as well too, because the money should be going forward. We should always be planning ahead. There are other cultures that are 30, 40, 50 years ahead of us every time they're planning for a child, because that's the way their family lineage and dynasty has been set up. Yeah, we may be behind in those areas, but now we need to start planning on how we get forward, because at the point in time they was behind.
Yeah, that's a prime example, man. Like we see it in a lot of Asian families and a lot of, I guess you could say Southeast Asian families. They be living in one house, bro. They say kids come back from college, they stay in that one house, drop a down payment on a new crib. We didn't talk about a little down payment. We talking about a big down payment.
Oh yeah,
they dropping some bread on some bread, and they just continue to cycle, because what happens is, man, you get to pay off your student loans if they got them. They can go buy their business or whatever they want to do, and they can get they can go get a crib. So they coming out the gate, bro, about 25, 26 years old, hitting the ground running. Where we started, we just now getting ready. We damn near 40.
Yeah.
So
I put it together.
I want to touch on two things that you guys were speaking on too. When DeJuan was talking about the crack epidemic, you knew how they targeted certain populations, because when the opium broke out, that didn't touch the Black community, right? But they were like, oh, that's not an issue, and we're gonna get them therapy and we can help them out. Whereas with crack, they were like, oh, we're not gonna look into rehab centers or whatever. So that lets you know right there how they saw the crack epidemic and why it did touch certain communities and not others, because they did not give any help to the inner cities with crack. But with opium, they was like, we're going to figure out a way to solve this situation. So I just wanted to put that out there as one. And
but it's crazy, right? Oh, and just to jump in and then let you go to your next point, the crack epidemic brought in the 3 strikes law, right? And being tough on crime and the crime bill, right? That came from the crack epidemic. Well, the opiate crisis, now it's a crisis, right? That gives mental health to more people. That gives drug court. That gives being able to go and go into treatment facilities and things of that nature, right? So when it happened with us, there was a need to get us off the streets, right? Prison. To lock us up, put them in cages, treat them like animals. Well, when it touches white America, suburban America, because it's not even really just about white America, because to a certain degree, poor white people are treated just as bad as Black people, right? But it's when it touches suburban America, middle class America, now they're like, hold on, we have to make sure these people get help. Well, why not? They didn't help the middle class Black people, right? So that's the problem with a lot of this. And Jeff talked about wealth and how our ability to pass down wealth. Man, I read something. It said like 60-70% of if you're rich and you're white, that wealth is passed down to your kids. More than likely, your kids were going to be wealthy. It was only like 20% for Blacks. Small number. So just wanted to piggyback on this. Go ahead, P. My bad.
My bad. I just want to jump in behind Parrish and just say, like, in general, I've worked in both communities, right? And I'm not saying that we're not going to count wealth. We're just going to call it for what people perceive it to be. Working in, my last agency that, the city of Richmond, opposed to where I'm working at right now, you can clearly see that there's a difference in what type of drugs are getting pulled off the street, right? Like, it was common to find crack in the streets of Richmond. It was common. I'm just calling a spade a spade. Where I'm working at now, I'm not pulling crack off people. I don't see any of my coworkers pulling crack off people. So when people start saying, oh, is this things that you talk about as the Black community made up, or do you guys kind of overcompensate for these issues? Hell no, it ain't. Like, there's crack in this community and you guys label it as things, and there's not crack in this other community I work in. You it's true, right? By the eyeball test. Let somebody find out that I worked in Richmond. They'll be like, ooh, he had it tough. They must have been wild there compared to where you work now. And it shows, right? When people have those certain perceptions of things, how the community is ran, how things are targeted, what's important, what's not important shows up. And it's not just in the statistics, it's on the eyeball test. And Richmond is an affluent place just like other places. It has its issues, but due to some of the labels it has, due to it being a little bit bigger and having more communities that may have a little bit of disparity, you come up with all types of different things that creates this perception about this place that it may or may not be.
So, and the only reason why I brought those up is because how we were tying at-risk situations, and then how it affects the long-term growth of one population in regards to how at-risk situation does not really affect another population because of the resources that are put into it. So with crack, less resources; opium, more resources, and then that continual wealth still goes on because they receive those resources. So I was trying to tie it all back together, and as we stay on the topic of the culture, is understanding the importance of resources, and then, like Taff was just saying, when you call a spade, and then immediately addressing it in that manner. So it's just something else to add that, as individuals and as a community, we need to go, all right, this is a situation that's going on. How do we give it the appropriate resources so that only we address it, but then we then help those individuals to then turn around and be great. So that's where I was going and tying all those together.
But it's hard. It's hard to do that. I just watched that Judas and the Messiah, how the Black Panthers and they was trying to get breakfast out there to the kids, trying to educate kids, trying to do all that stuff. And they like, hey, this dude, like, he's 20 years old, bro. They're like, we got to stop him. Government, like, he on to something. He on to something. We got to stop him. They did it with all of our leaders, man. And it's hard. And I'm just hoping that they don't do nothing to Stacey Abrams and other stuff like that, because what she's doing is making major change, and they are very upset about it. Very upset about it.
Yeah, you're right. If you think about our leaders, Fred Hampton, you think about MLK, you think about who else? Malcolm X. Those people were taken out by our government, essentially, right? Whether the government did it or they had an informant who they paid to. The government said, "Hold on, we're going to slow down the progress of this community." Right.
And it's always us. It is always us, bro. Always us.
It's always us. Right. And so there's a lot of information. There's a lot of people who believe that, as Black people, we complain a lot. Right. You're complaining. Well, when I watch the Black Lives Matter movement and, cops being heavily armed with tear gas, riot shield, the narrative around the news, they're looters, they're stealing, these thugs, and 4 or 5 months later, right, we watched the insurrection at the Capitol, and cops died, guys. Cops died. Blue lives matter, right? Because y'all know me. I support all lives matter. I support Black lives, blue lives, all lives, right? Because that's important. But blue lives matter. There was a cop being hit with a blue lives matter flag, guys. I want y'all to think about this. We still don't have somebody that's been accused with the murder of the police officer. Had that been Black people, they would have found somebody to accuse. They would have just put somebody in place. You got all these people getting off on pardons. I'm not pardons, getting let go from prison because of DNA. So imagine all them lives that was ruined for people going to jail for crimes they never commit because the white people said, somebody has to answer for this. Somebody got to answer. Hey, let's go get him. So that's crazy to me when you can see the parallels, how one group of people were treated compared to another group of people, and they were both doing the same thing. They both believed that their group, their movement was wrong in some type of way, and they were protesting. So it shows you that we do live in a country. We live in a place where race matters, money matters, gender matters, right? Sexuality matters. All this stuff matters. So we need to stop ignoring it and acting like it does. Like it doesn't. Yeah. People always say, "Oh well, I didn't take that job because I was Black." What? For the culture, that is the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. You didn't take an opportunity because they gave it to you because you were Black. What about if they gave the other person an opportunity because they were a woman, or because that person had blonde hair, or because that person went to Harvard? They're choosing you based off some type of characteristic or something that you have that makes it. And if you choose me because I'm Black and you want me to be the token, cool. I'll come in. I'll do what I need to do for my 2 years. I'll get my experience, and I'll go somewhere else where I feel like I'm valued even more. But don't turn down an opportunity simply because your belief is they only chose me because I'm Black. Sometimes, man, again, the things that people teach us in our community that should be good for us, that hold us back, is mind-boggling at times.
I mean, we could go into that one for the culture as far as how police jobs go. Oh, I don't want to be the police because, I'm Black. I can't do that job. And I mean, just to kind of segue, but come back to it, you look at people that go to big colleges, right? Get drafted number one overall because they went to a big school. The hype is around them and all of that. Why are they being picked? maybe they got the stat line, but also maybe because of how they get media attention, the perception around them. And then you've got some, let's just go with it, back in the day, 6th-round pick like Tom Brady, who ends up being the GOAT. You know what I'm saying? There was never no hype or nothing like that. So you may get picked for a certain job. You may get picked before other people because of a demographic that you met. But when we get on the field, you still got to play. Everybody got to play. Don't nobody overlook the fact that you are or you came from this thing. So just give them a pass. People hold you accountable for that. I mean, I will say, yeah, it may be a little bit easier to get a job as a black man trying to be the police right now because it's a demographic that needs to be met. They may be more willing to look at you than they have in the past. I can't say that to be true or false. It's just something that I think. But at the same time, when you get on the field, you still got to perform. And the pressure
you got to perform, bro.
And then the pressures of being that black police officer, and I'm going to call it for what it is. I think it's bigger than being white, Hispanic, Chinese, or anything like that, because you're taught from day one, from the jump, from your peers that are black, from senior black officers. Hey, bro, you got to work harder than everybody else. When you come in that building, you got to really know your shit, or you got to really be on top of your game. Why is that? You know what I'm saying? And I've heard this from white and black people. You have to work harder in order to establish your reason and place to be here. And I know that my field isn't necessarily unique to that, but I'm just saying from my experiences, I know y'all probably have the same ones. That's a lot, bro. Like, I mean, and it's real. But at the end of the day, we all still got to perform no matter how you get the damn job.
Yeah, but Tab, what you're talking about is making yourself indispensable.
Yes.
So what happens, like what Dewan talked about, is they any job you get, they're giving it to you unless you start your own business. And then when it's certain things that's related to that, they can stop you from doing that too. So any job you get, somebody's going to be giving it to you. Whether you're going to be a CEO or something, somebody got to vet you and pick you to be that person.
Yeah.
Only because you're qualified. And then when you get into that position, right, what they got now, they call it culture and diversity or whatever this shit is called now.
Yeah.
What your job is now, though, when you get in there, you make yourself undeniably great, and then you bring all your people with you.
Yeah.
We're gonna turn it up. That's how you do it. That's how we supposed to do it, instead of being like what y'all talked about, survivor's remorse. All right, I'm gonna just go in here and be the token. I'm gonna just go and be the only one. Nuh-uh. I'm gonna show y'all how good I am. They be like, this Jeff is good at this shit.
Yeah.
I got more people too. Let's go.
And I'm right there with you. I in no way look at myself as coming there and, for lack of a better term, Brian Gumble it up or be the token. I mean, I'm innovative in that. I'm not coming there talking that normal shit. Yeah, I would like that. That's great. Nah. I'm off probation. All right, fuck. But I talk like that because at the end of the day, when I hit the streets and I interact with people, I'm going to be able to back it up. And that's what people have to understand. There may be a criteria in order that you have to follow to meet a job, but at no point in time does that not mean that you cannot be innovative. They looking for innovation. The reason that people keep wondering why they're getting the same shit and the same results is because the same type of people that look exactly the same, talk exactly the same, are walking through the door. No matter what culture you are, once you fulfill the minimum or the necessary requirements for the job, every job you get, you can be innovative in.
But you're clear on that shit, man.
Yeah.
And what you guys are talking about, though, is that equality that we're trying to get in Upper America, and trying to get more Black people hired in those least those areas where Black people aren't represented. So in education, and I'll speak from that perspective, you know, it's a drive for more Black people to become presidents, vice presidents, because how else are you going to change the system? I mean, to change the system, you got to be within it, right?
You got to be within it, bro.
You got to be
Say
within
it again, P.
To change the system, you got to be within it. And that's another thing that I don't think people, like when Dewan said, I don't want to take that job because I'm Black. Well, you got to take that job because you're Black. Because if you want to change the system, you got to be there. You got to be at the table. Like if you're not at the table to be represented, or you're not at that table representing other people that look like you, the system is not going to change. So for the culture, you take those opportunities, you beast them out, and then you flip it into what's next. My uncle, man, and it always just dropping little nuggets with me. And the nugget I'm gonna run with, and I've been running with for a long time, is good, better, best. Never let them rest until your good is better and your better is best. So with that mindset, you gotta go in there and be like, hey, not only do I have to be good, I gotta be better than the best. So you can't turn down opportunities, man. They don't come knocking at the door all the time.
And you go ahead, Dawn.
I was gonna say it's crazy, right? Because I have conversations all the time. You know, you guys know I'm a therapist, so I'm interacting with people all the time, and they're trying to figure out what to do with their careers, whether they went to college and can't figure it out, or they, you know, and they just want to help. They want to help people, or they haven't had, you know, went to college and they want to help. They ain't got no, you know, they don't have any bad habits, no criminal record, nothing like that, nothing too crazy. And I always say, well, you complain about the things that we're seeing. Like most of us, we complain about the things we're seeing with police brutality. Go be a cop. Go be one. Go join the force. And then what happens is you come, and then the next year you find somebody that you can give them the game. Hey, this is what you need to do for interviewing. This is kind of, you know, the departments that are hiring, and then that person brings somebody else, and then that person brings somebody in. And now there's within the force, there is a minority or even a majority of thought that has a similar perspective on community policing and how you treat people right now. And, you know, the feedback I always get is, oh, man, I ain't doing, man. That's crazy, man. That's dangerous. Bro, you out here having unprotected sex with random people all the time. Being a cop ain't no dangerous than that, right? It ain't no dangerous than that. So if you look at the statistics, there's more people dying of AIDS and other, you know, sex health related problems than their police officers dying on the force. Not to mention, you have the ability to take care of your family, especially if you have an opportunity to go and join a force where they don't require a college degree. Now you don't have the student loan debt and all that. Now you can really uplift your family. Look, I ain't gonna get into it, but I got a couple of my boys that's cops, and they eat well. Hunt half. They eat well.
I don't know.
Right? So we talking about, oh, well, cops don't. What cops you know that don't make no money? If you a cop in the inner city or a suburb, or out overtime, all that, and you don't have to be on the streets, man. You could be a cybersecurity. There's so many things you can do. I think mentally in our community, we have to stop telling people again the things that are good for them are bad for them, because again, that's the easiest way to convince people or Black people to continue to fail is if there start being narratives out there about, hey, don't do this. Hey, don't get married, right? Because, man, no, bro, statistically, once you get married, then your income level, your wealth grows, right? Because you have two people that's managing a household instead of one. So now instead of you being over there paying this bill, I'm over here paying this bill. Now we can split these bills. We can start saving, and we can start a business. We can pay for our kids for school. We can pay for our kids to travel, resources, things of that nature. So we just got to change our mindset.
So, and another thing about, I mean, and this is another one that's good for the culture, is by taking on those other positions, and when you're looking for financial freedom, right? That's what I think people are trying to strive for. And so you take on those jobs and you're like, man, this may not be the job that, you know, I really, really wanted. But then that's how you manifest your mind and go, all right, this job is going to be for this purpose until I make either some kind of financial decision to either save, invest, or purchased or create something new that then to change that avenue. So that's another thing that I think, DeJuan, just following your process of thinking, is don't allow people to tell you like, oh, that's going to get you stuck in that position. So you become a cop and that's all you're going to be, is a foot soldier. That's all you're going to do. Once you're a cop, you're going to be running around, always chasing the bad guy. No, that's not necessarily how it works. You then flip it into something else until you find an avenue that you're good at. And then the other thing that I think people fall short of is there's no money there. That's one thing. There's no money in that industry. Well, there's no money in that industry because the person hasn't put their mind together to figure that out. So
make it worth something.
Make it worth something. So what are you trying to accomplish so that you can get the amount of money you want to then thrive in your life? So I know a lot of people are like, man, in education, you really, don't make much. But the funny thing is, probably in the beginning, but the people who are like principals, vice principals, like the people who are running it, they make great money. So not only do you get to now run the institution, you are making good money, but then you can affect change. So that's another thing I think people need to understand is get into certain positions doesn't mean you're going to get stuck there. You can manifest it.
So you can take a loan. I can get a loan from you, Pete. You said
I didn't say I was that dude yet. I said I'm manifesting to get to those positions.
But we hear that though. We hear that before you go, Tal. We hear that about, oh, they don't make much. That person may not make much because they're not ambitious, or They just want that security and comfort of that job, that money, and that salary. I hear this all the time with people that's thinking about getting into mental health. Well, counselors don't make much. What? What are you talking about? That is a total fallacy. Now, if you go and work for a community nonprofit mental health facility, then yeah, you probably won't make much, right? Because it's nonprofit. But if you go and you start your own business and you start your own private practice, which is easy to do and it doesn't really cost much, you just say, hey, I'm here. Come see me. Then now you have an opportunity to create a sense of generational wealth because you control how much you make. You control who you see, how many hours you work. I think there's a lot of aspects of that that's ignorant. Another thing is we don't go see mental health therapists, right? That's another thing. Oh man, don't go talk to them. Man, they're going to tell your business. They're going to call CPS or they're going to, no, man, stop. Again, mental health is so important. We've been through so much trauma, right? Whether it's experienced trauma, vicarious trauma, secondary trauma. We've been through so much trauma in our community. We just talked about the crack era. We all experienced that. We all watched aunties, uncles, family members, parents deal with addiction. And how did that play a role into our mind, right? We've all been through relationships that didn't work out. We've all dealt with community violence. That stuff causes trauma. And for people to convince Black people who probably need therapy the most to not go through trauma, to not go get therapy again, our marriage counseling, that is very detrimental to the long-term benefits of our community.
Yeah, no, I was just going to go and say, also, when you're talking about that, these jobs where people are like, don't take that, or, oh, you're this, you're that, and things like that. We already said it earlier. We got to step into them roles in our community and make it more acceptable. We want kids to grow up and other people to feel like these are things that you can go and do. We have to just be willing to stand in those places in life. Until we start doing that, that's what's creating the stigma behind it. So we got to jump out there and get involved in those things.
Okay. Right. All right. What do you think about the aspects of we talk about love and relationships a lot? We talk, Tab, you kind of started the conversation about marriage and Black marriage. What do you guys, what do we need to do for the culture in our communities to understand about marriage?
For the culture, man, we gotta take that stigma out that it's cool to be running the streets forever and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. For the culture, Black marriage is good, bro. That don't mean that you ain't experienced bumps in the roads in your marriage, just like anything else. And like that should come with its ups and downs, its peaks and valleys. But for the culture, Black marriage is good. In general, the kids, everybody, foundation. It don't matter if you didn't had a baby with somebody else and now you're getting married to this other person or not. Black marriage is good. Build a foundation around those that are important to you so that they can have more of a stable platform than you did.
Again, that's very important, man. Long-lasting relationships is important for anybody. Even just like you said, marriage, we talk about marriage, but just friendships in general. Dewan been my partner since we've been 12 years old. I'm 36, he's 37. How many people can say they got friends for 25 years? I met Tab in 2003, Paris in 2003. How many people?
You just tell everybody how old I was on the air?
You hella old, bro.
Hello.
But I'm saying long-lasting relationships are important for everybody. We all have our bumps in the roads. Even as friends, we have our bumps in the roads. But in a marriage, me and my wife, we for the most part, we smooth sailing. But sometimes there are rocky parts. Sometimes there's peaks and valleys. But the thing that I know most is that we love each other. We're in love with each other, and we're going to do whatever we need to do for each other. But some people don't want to sacrifice, like we talked about, ego death or being the man in the streets or the woman in the streets or all that kind of stuff. To, like Dewan said, let's split this thing up, man. You want to get a new car? Cool. How much is it? Let's split that joint. You want to get a new house? How much is that? I'll take the boat. Let's split that joint. It's so much easier to split this shit, man. Instead of having to do it by yourself. Why would I want to raise my kid by myself? Why would she want to raise her kid by herself? Vice versa. Let's do this together because it's so much easier. We always say, what's the motto? It takes a village, right?
Teamwork makes the dream work.
It's the village. Teamwork make the dream work. Why would I not want to be a team with somebody that I love and that loves me? Now, if it's toxic and it's all fucked up, then that's different. You can co-parent, but that's still a community. Yeah, that's still community.
But I'm a come from the experience of this. You are right in saying it takes a village to raise a child, because I'm a living situation that, I was married, didn't work out. So now we're raising our son, 2 separate households. And even though we co-parent and for the most part, he's doing well. Well, my sons are doing well. at the same time, I always think, what if we were in the same home? And what if we did figure out a way to make it work? Like, how much better would his life have been to go, I only go to one house all the time. I got an issue, something comes up, both my parents are sitting there for me to talk about it. You know what? And here's another thing that I know that I have to teach my son over time, and is to, this is how you treat your woman, right? And so I verbally have to tell him now, but imagine if me and his mother did work out and we were in the same house, and he was like, man, every once in a while I saw my dad open the car for my mom, and I saw how she appreciated how she opened the door for him. Like, she reached over and did this. So now he gets into a mindset like, oh, that's how you treat your lady and keep her happy. Oh, my mom would get up and do this, this, and this. And then my dad would show his appreciation by doing this part of the housework. Oh, that's how a joint house works. Oh, when they had bills they had to pay, or they had something a big purchase, I see how they saved together, how they sacrificed, and they didn't go out to eat or once in a while, or they even talked about, this is how we're building financial wealth as a family. Those are things I got to teach my son, but it would have been nice for him to see it happen in the household. So the stigma of, separate, or, once you are upset with your significant other, just call it a clean break. Nah, take the time out to try to work it out. Try to figure out why that situation took place, because for the culture, it's going to benefit your children in the long run.
Definitely. No, I think that's really important. My bad, Tab. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I agree with that. You can't be so quick to tap out. And that also comes with the stigmas around everybody else in your business. And you got to control your household. People will watch and see different things happen and be like, oh, why are they still together? I can't believe he stayed. Or I can't believe she stayed. Mind your dumbass alone business, and don't worry about what the hell going on in nobody else's house. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you get advice from somebody who's lonely, ain't never been in a long-term relationship. They ain't got nobody right now, and that's the person that you getting relationship and marriage advice from. Okay, keep doing that.
Just simply this: the way their relationship runs in general wouldn't work for me at all. So the fact that they are telling me how to run my plays, we have two different type of personnels in our locker room. We have two different types of wide receivers. So what may work for your speedy wide receiver don't work for my possession wide receiver, straight up. So I'm really not trying to hear how you telling me how to coach this game. You try to get to the Super Bowl however the hell you see fit, and we're going to get to the Super Bowl however I see fit over here, or however we see fit over here, and it's just crazy. Like, I mean, yes, it's okay to come to people and get a little bit of advice or hear different things and things like that. Nothing wrong with that. We may all need to check and balance each other. I trust my inner circle very closely to give me good advice. But at the same time, I ain't necessarily trusting my inner circle to tell me you need to go get a divorce or something like that. And I don't think nobody should be in anybody's business like that. You got to
go ahead. I was going to just, when you were talking about good advice, I'm like, but you got to look at who you're getting that advice from, because sometimes you're like, I see you giving advice, but I see what kind of person you are too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all checks and balance. And what happens is, when you get advice, man, you got to make sure it's for the betterment of you and the things you got going on.
For the culture.
The people that you get advice from got to know the ins and outs of what you got going on, and want to know, they need to know your goals. So if your goals is generational wealth and this or that, they're not going to tell you quit your job. They're not going to tell you, you know what I'm saying, all the crazy shit. Well, go ahead and get a divorce and give her 50 or whatever, 50% of whatever it is. They're going to tell you, work that thing out and do what you got to do. It's not people telling you advice just to give you advice. No, you need to know my goals. This is the thing we do in therapy. You need to know, I need to know your goals and how we're going to hit these goals. And then you out on the way, you can fly.
It's crazy, because there's often times where people don't understand, right? And I always use the comparison to the stock market, right? We all play the stock market, right? And when you buy a stock, typically you buying to hold that long term, right? That's a long term play. You don't care. You're not reactive about the lows and the highs. As long as the highs are better than the lows, as long as there's more green than red, you're not running or selling on the stock simply because it's in the green. I mean, because it's in the red. But people in marriage do that. As soon as it gets in the red, they run, right? They run. But when you do something long term, it's always going to have highs and lows, right? It's always going to have highs and lows. And sometimes we learn how strong we are in our lows. If we never been through any adversity in our marriage, how do we know we're really going to be there to support one another? So I think there's aspects of commitment, right? Our commitment in our community, our commitment to work, right? Are we able to withstand a difficult job in order to see the long-term play? Our commitment to our friendships. Are we able to repair a friendship, when we get into an argument, me and Tav get in an argument, we get in a fist fight. All right, do I stop talking to Tav now because we had an hour situation in our 20 years of being friends where we didn't get along? Or do I say, no, like, let me go to Tav and let's talk about this. Let's communicate. I'm not always saying that it's going to result in the relationship being repaired, but are we talking? I think sometimes the problem with marriage in our community is, we talked about what happened with the crack era, where there was a narrative created that led to the demise, essentially, of our community during that time, right? There's always narratives. There's always narratives. Who creates this narrative, right? Who creates the narrative of the independent, strong Black woman? I was watching some YouTube video. It was a woman. She was speaking on how problematic that independent label is. You don't hear about independent white women, Asian women, Pacific Islander women, and you don't even hear independent Black man. So what happens is that narrative creates a sense of belief that, hey, I can do this on my own. When the reality is, yeah, you probably can. But in most cases, I can promise you, if you find the right partner, and not the perfect partner, because perfect doesn't exist. It's not perfection. If you find the right partner, then you guys can do it better together, right? And so sometimes it's the narratives. Who created those narratives? Did the people who want to destroy the Black family create the narrative, and then we run with it? And I think there's things that we need to learn for our culture to just do better with relationships, not even marriages, just relationships. How do we communicate? Why, when we feel like we're communicating, we feel like we're being weak, right? Why do we make decisions based on our pride and our ego, are being selfish? Why don't we know how to? We always talk about for the community, but when it comes to us doing things for our community with our home, we don't do those things. People are good to go out and talk to other communities about, or go out and help somebody else, right? You got some Black men, they out helping other kids, but they ain't even doing the work to help their own kids. Bro, you out here taking care of somebody else's kids. Like, you involved in the community, you doing this, you got big brother, big sister, you got all that, but you ain't taking care of your own kid. Like, take care of home first. And that's what we got to learn, because if you take care of the middle, then everything else around it gets better, right? So you got to start inside in order to improve the outside.
I'm going to go on a stretch and say, you know what's bad for the culture? And just let me follow me on this one. Independent Black women and independent Black men. Self-sufficient Black men and self-sufficient Black women are good for the culture, right? Like, we need to be in a place where once we start getting to those points in our lives, we're able to be vulnerable. But that independent thing, at some point in time, the pressures of being that, standing on all that shit by yourself, that's got to be a lot of pressure, man. Like, you don't want to always have to be the one standing in the pain all by yourself, especially if we out here preaching it takes a village, it takes a village. You know what? I'm going to just say it. For the culture, you get older, you establish families, good friendships. For the culture, independent Black men and Black women, that's bad. Let's just be self-sufficient so that we can all still be able to hold our own, but also know that we can count on the people around us.
So I was going to piggyback two things off of what you said, Dewan, and the two things were, you were speaking on how, not communication, but how people, engage with each other. And in my mind, I'm thinking, when have you yourself, and this is something I think that we need to reflect on, when have you, thinking about who you are, have not had your own ups and downs? Like, when you yourself say, dang, I messed up on there. Oh man, I fucked that up. And then you reflect on yourself. So if you do that personally, what do you think your spouse, you know what I'm saying? Your spouse is going to have their ups and downs. So you can't always be like, well, I expect you to be a certain way, when you know in yourself you have your own ups and downs. So of course, everybody, we're human. We're going to have differences of opinion because that's how we're built. I wasn't born to be Dewan. Dewan wasn't born to be Tap. Like, we're going to all have our own opinions. So if you're living with somebody and working out a relationship, you just have to understand, like, that person grew up and lived their life before we met. And so of course they have their own frame of thought. So that's one. And then the other thing is, when we're talking about communication, I wanted to add something else to communication, also comprehension. Because just because I'm talking to you, I need you to know that, hey, what I'm saying, and this is the understanding of what I'm saying. So I think that's another thing that people need to sometimes consider when you're communicating. Don't just be talking back and forth. Actually kind of understand or try to comprehend what they're saying so that you can have that good dialogue to come to a resolution. And I think that happens a lot. Like, I know personally, there's been times where I'm listening and I'm like, I just want to answer that one. I'm going to answer that one. And I'm not really, you know what I'm saying? You're like, I'm ready to address. I'm ready to address. I'm ready to address. And you're not thinking
ready
like
for the rebuttal.
Yeah.
Right. before I address, let me really comprehend what they're saying, so that when I do come to rebuttal, this is where we were missing that point. So that's another thing I wanted to put out there, that people are who they are, and you got to learn how to allow that space to take place, and then also communicate and comprehend so that you can have those conversations go back and forth.
Definitely. Yeah, Dewan teach a course called Safe Conversations. And a key part of that is there's a person that's going to make a statement, then there's a person going to say, oh, I heard you say this. And then that person that's listening the ability to say, oh, I heard you say that. So now I understand what you said. I said it the way you said it, and now I can respond to it. Instead of me just responding to something, just throwing it out there. And I probably just, you might have hit bold text on accident. You yelling? Nah, I just put, it was an accident. You saw how easy that could be misconstrued. The phone did that. I didn't even put that in there. But it's I heard you say this, and then I can reply with the proper response instead of it being like parachute, that thing there.
Right. No. It's so important in so many regards, our ability to learn to listen, right? So much of communication is the ability to listen. If you're a great communicator, then that means you're really good at listening, right? That means I sat back and I listened to you, and I can go back and mirror what you said, right? I can go back and kind of repeat what you said to ensure that I am properly listening. But I think sometimes, there's a power struggle that exists within not just relationships. I think in our community in general, where because one person said something that you disagree with, one thing, nine things out of 10 was something you agree with. That one thing, now you can't rock with them. We sometimes expect perfection within our community, perfection at it, but we don't get it anywhere else. We don't get perfection at work. We're not even perfect with ourselves, but we expect our spouses to be perfect. We expect the people who are, quote unquote, our leaders in our community, our politicians, our celebrities. We expect them to be perfect instead of being people. And based on their experiences, they're going to have a different set of beliefs. You know what I mean? And I don't care if you're Black and you're a Republican. If you're talking something good and you're giving good information, I'm going to listen to you, right? I don't care if you're Black and we disagree on a lot of points. If you have a good point, I'm going to listen to you, right? Because it's not my job I'm not looking for a follower. I'm not looking to be a Trump supporter and have a cult leader that no matter what they say and no matter what they do, I blindly follow them. I'm just looking to gather information. And I think we need to be better at times, and that's all of us, that's me included, at gathering more information before we make decisions. We talked about like school and education, right? Support Black colleges, right? Support Black colleges. Shout out to www.supportblackcolleges. Shout out to Federal, all these Black-owned businesses. What ends up happening is there's a narrative about education and there's a narrative about Black colleges. And as a result, we don't send our kids to the institutions that was designed for us. Now, if your kid grew up with aspirations to go to USC and Stanford and Harvard and Boston, there's nothing wrong with that. Send them to where they want to go. But if your kid doesn't really care about where they want to go, they just want to go and get educated, why not send them to a place where their culture is celebrated? Black people are celebrated every single day in Black colleges. Not to mention, somebody's walking around campus, right? And they see Pete, right? They see Pete. One day he got on his Pittsburgh hat, right? He got on his Timbs, he got on his hoodie, and then the next day they see him and he got on his suit and his tie, right, with his briefcase. They're like, oh man, hold on.
You can do both.
You still can be yourself and still be successful. Sometimes when you go to a Black college, you see that, right? You don't always have to be the tie wearing and the sweater vest and the turtleneck wearing Black man, Black woman in order to be successful. You can still be yourself. You just have to know who to be in different situations. And going to educational institutions where you're celebrated, the professors look like you, you're going to form those relationships. It matters a lot for our community. I always say, your kid got a 2.5 GPA. Why they didn't go to college? Oh, they couldn't get into any college. They can get into some of them Black colleges, I guarantee you.
Big fact.
Right? They can get into it, right? So what you need to start to do is think outside the box. Be able to travel. Allow your kid to see a different world. I love California with all my heart. I love it. But my ability to get outside of California showed me that other places are different. It's not a rat race, right? I don't have to work, 80 hours a week in order to survive. In California, it costs $3,500 for a one-bedroom apartment, right? So it's hard for people to survive. But if they open up their mind and sent their kids out to the world, they can see, oh no, you can live in Dallas, Texas, the heart of the city, and get an apartment for $700 a month.
I mean, we just literally came back from visiting in Atlanta, and I mean, I just sat at the top of, we was at in Lenox Mall, and I just sat at the top of Lenox Mall and watched the ratio of Black people walking around opposed to any other culture. And it was like 8 to 10. It was like 8 out of 10 people every time, like 8 out of 10 people Black. You know what I'm saying? And like, so just like you said, when I come to visit Houston, when I'm in Dallas, and especially when I'm in Atlanta, like it's something about seeing that, you know, because we don't always get to see that in California. It's a diverse place, and I appreciate that. But sometimes you just want to feel kind of like ground rooted in your own. And that experience is big, you know? And like you said, I think one of the things that we all do well is that we all have professional jobs that require either a uniform or a suit and tie, or both at some point in times. And we'll switch it up. We trap music on our weekends. We hoodied up on our weekends. We talking our talk. Like, it's important for people to see that you can do both. When you seeing people do both, it's like, damn, man, like, I don't know, but it's something amazing to know that you can have a person switch between all of these different type of, not even personalities, but different type of roles and wardrobe in life, but still be professional. You ain't got to be, oh, he's a thug. His pants is sagging today. Well, that suit is going to be tailored tomorrow. So don't worry about them pants today.
Hey, that's one of my topics, man. Stereotypes and stigmas. Did we do that one? I don't know, but
we got to get to that one though.
It's a good one, man, because it's one of them things. You see me with a hoodie and a beanie on, and then we start a conversation. Me and Dewan was at the Omni watching the game one day, and we were just chopping it up as you used to do at the bar. I met the dude that he was like a director or something at Fidelity. He was like, man, you bright as a mug, man. And he gave me his card, like, man, call me. You need some advice, this or whatever. But it's so many times you run into people at random places. But I was dressed like this. He had no. We just bumped each other. Hey, man, how you doing? Sparked the conversation, and it was one of them things that he would have never spoken to me. Maybe if I was dressed in a certain type of way, but we was in the same atmosphere because I was in the Omni downtown. It's a mix of mingle of different type of people. But he didn't look at me and say, okay, he's dressed a certain way. But when I spoke, my vernacular was correct in the moment. But I still, you know, I'm still gonna have my pants. We wearing skinnies now. We ain't sagging no more, so it's kind of skinny.
I be sagging still. I don't care. That's what I like.
So let me say this. I went to. This is a great. And this is what I've learned in my experience. I went to a historically Black university, and I also went to PWI.
Right,
yeah, I'll call it PWI. So, which is predominantly white institution. I was going to define it predominantly white institution. So I went to HBCU and a PWI. I went to Howard, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Howard was, as Dewan stated, Howard, man, the professors, they get on you. Like, they get on you. Like, they hold you to a standard. So like when Dewan was like, oh, you got a 2.5 and he couldn't get into a college, but he went to that HBCU, they're like, oh, you got a 2.5 and get in here. But when you leave, you're going to have a 3.0 or you're going to have a 4.0 or you're going to be going on to a higher degree. And that's one thing I learned at HBCU, how to code switch. I think we've been saying that, not the direct word, but how to code switch, because after leaving the HBCU, I then transferred to Sac State, and then I went on to get a higher degree at another university. But by transferring, when I got into those certain rooms and hold those conversations with those professors, I was like, oh, I know exactly how to deal with you right now. Mm-hmm. I learned all this at the HBCU, but now I know how to use that here in this situation. So as you guys were stating, like, yeah, I could put on my Timbs because that's what I grew up wearing. But then you get in a certain room, you're like, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to need to do in order to get you on my page. So both institutions have their own way of getting you to where you want to go. But yes, I learned a lot at my HBCU experience because it just gives you the mindset of Black is great. Yes. Black is wonderful.
It's great.
You walk around campus and it's like, if you don't throw up your Black fist at one point during your whole experience here, you missed out on something, because it's a life-changing experience. So I wanted to make sure that
y'all telling me I gotta go back to school, huh? I missed that boat.
Oh, no, I'm just saying you may have missed a little bit. I'm just saying. By joining a frat, you picked it up, but at the same time, it's a whole different life at a HBCU. And I also wanted to say, we were talking about education and working in education. I I don't know if a college education is for everybody all the time, but however, I do know you need to be well versed and good at doing what you do. So if you're going to be that auto mechanic, that's a technical skill, study your behind off and go to school to make sure you understand that role, if that's what you decide to do. And that's one thing I think people need to understand is you don't always have to go to college to be educated, but you have to find out where is those resources to understand what it is you want to be great at.
We can talk about that. I may have a shortage on degrees, but I tell you one thing, I damn sure got my PhD in code switching, and that's helping me get into a lot more buildings than even sometimes meeting the requirements of, those that have degrees. So you got to know how to code switch and make that beneficial to yourself. I know for a fact that it's worked for me, and I've seen it work on both ends, on how it's given me job opportunities, and I've also seen how it works in my personal life. Parrish is good for getting a text from somebody being like, is he really the police? Like, he can't possibly really be the police. Like, and that's because I'm comfortable in both settings and I switch it up. And you got to be comfortable in that. I mean, code switching, that's some of the things that we did learn, just being in our organization and things like that. But in general, you need to know that for your life. It's a well balance, and it's not you selling out. It's you knowing what behaviors are appropriate or inappropriate and how to apply what type of conversation and communication to people that are inappropriate. So it's not just for you. It's also for those around you that sometimes may try to put you in hostile environments or not so comfortable places. How do you make that more comfortable for yourself? If you've got an arsenal of tools when it comes to communication, you can find your ways into making yourself more comfortable, especially in situations that aren't necessarily comfortable.
The greatest educational tool we can give our children is exposure, right? So, that's where that conversation about the importance of like Black love, Black marriage, Black families. You got two incomes, they can do more and offer more resources. You can put your kid on that traveling soccer team that go during the season and over the summer and visit 4 or 5 states. You can put your kid in that internship program where they go spend 2 weeks in Africa, China, France, New York. You can put your kid in those experiences that's going to give them life education, worldly education. So now they think outside the box. They think outside that bubble that they're raised in. They know there's more opportunities. So many people, whether you're living in Vallejo, Jersey, Pittsburgh, LA, wherever you are, Dallas, Houston, if you've never left that bubble, you think everywhere is like that. One of the biggest things that I tell people the culture shock was when I first went to school in Oklahoma. I left California. I left the Bay Area, one of the most largest populated places in the United States of America, other than the New York boroughs. A lot of culture, man. It's culture celebrated. Everything's great. Racism wasn't so much of an issue. Things of that nature. I moved to Oklahoma. Langston University is about 45 minutes away from the city, and it's out in kind of rural. Back in the sticks, you got cows, goats, horses, and all that. And I'm like, what the heck is this? Right? I'm thinking every place is like California, because in my traveling, Texas, Arizona, places like that growing up, I've only been in the major cities. So I'm thinking everything kind of goes that way. And you start to see, man, there's a different America out there that exists. But it positioned me to be able to be grateful for what I had, but also know that, hey, maybe I need this right here to slow down. Some of our kids, they just need to go to some of these schools so they can slow down and get away from their environment, because sometimes it's their environment dragging them down. I think we have to stop being afraid of change, because culturally, sometimes we can get kind of lost in doing only these certain amount of things. And it prevents us from really growing in a way where we push ourselves, because if we're changing, that means we're growing. And the more and more you grow, the more and more you get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And if you can get comfortable with being uncomfortable, sky's the limit. Kamala Harris is the first woman vice president of the United States of America, and she's Black, right? And she went to an HBCU. So when you talk about, you go to an HBCU, what career opportunities exist? The same exist that go to the PWI. It's really about the person who can interview. Outside of certain schools, they don't really care about that school. They don't know the name of that school. Look, they don't know Sac State in Texas. They don't know what the hell that is, right? All they know is you went to college. And so we have to change the conditioning that we have for our families. We got to expose our kids to as many things as possible, because that's the only way we're going to know their true gift, is you expose them to a lot, even if it's something that culturally we're not normally used to.
One of the other things too that I was thinking about that's good for the culture is us sharing our shortcomings and or failures and our success stories, right? Like we have to be more comfortable talking about the shortcomings that we have in life and how they get us to that next point in our life, right? We don't always talk about that on social media and different things like that. All you see is people talk about the good. They're never really sharing the experiences that are bad that build them to get to where they're at. I've watched all of you guys at some point in time get told no on a job or get told no for an opportunity that you wanted at that time and how it made you come back. I'll share a quick one from myself. I recently applied for a promotional opportunity at my job for career advancement. Flat out, the sergeant's test. First step in that test is the written test. I did not pass the written test. That does not mean that I'm not going to become a sergeant. That does not mean that I'm not qualified for the job. I just simply failed the written test. Does that mean that I'm not about to bounce back on the next one and get it on the next time or get it the time after that? Even if I don't get it this next time coming up, those are the type of things that have to happen. You have to talk about our shortcomings and our failures and how they build to where we're getting at. I think it builds credibility in our community and in our story and who we are. And ultimately, it also takes people that are doubting themselves, saying, I can't do this, or this isn't going to work for me, because they had a shortcoming one time or maybe twice and they gave up. I mean, y'all know my story. I graduated from the academy in 2009. I didn't get my first police job until like 2014, 2015. I mean, I was told no from hella different agencies. Now, part of that may have been due to the fact that there was also, the recession going on and jobs were at a shortage. But some of that was due to the fact that I was just flat out getting told no. Like, it ain't no excuse. I just was a no. When that wheel turned for me and I got my first opportunity and I built on that, like Pete said, and I built on that, like I think Anthony mentioned in the comments, leaving my first job to go into my second job, opportunities have changed for me. You know what I'm saying? I'm now a desired candidate. But I remember what it was like for 4 or 5 years of getting told no. The impact that had on my financial situation, the impact that had on my relationship, the impact that had on my self-esteem, the impact that had on multiple areas of my life of wondering, am I good enough or not good enough? Like, people don't talk about that shit. And then, I come on here and I act like every day it's all good. We just balling out. Well, I remember when we was just bricking out, when nothing would go in. You know what I'm saying? And we gotta, as a community, have those conversations with each other so we can keep motivating each other and keep saying, yeah, it don't matter if your shortcomings happen in life or this or that happened to you. Real ones gonna always bounce back, man. We're made of resilient people, man, and that's what we're gonna do, and that's what it's gonna be.
Definitely. I think we all got a story similar to that. Shoot, because that's what recession happened when I graduated college in 2007, and I went to the fire academy, did all that, graduated EMT, all that kind of stuff. Bruh, I didn't get a job. None of it. I applied from all the way from Oregon all the way through California, bruh. Nobody's hiring. I got a bachelor's degree and the qualifications for a firefighter, except the paramedic part. From 2007 to we left in 2010, as a 3-year span, I'm applying all across everywhere. Never got an opportunity, even with the degree. So it's one of them things like, shoot, I checked all the boxes, man. I am even a person of color, but I never got the opportunities that I thought I should get based on paper. But who knows how those things work. But in addition to that, when I went back for my master's, I started at Liberty and went to Liberty for a year. 30 racks, gone. I failed a class, kicked me out. I called parents
One
like,
class.
hey, huh?
One class.
Oh, I don't know. I can't.
No, he's saying just one class.
Oh, yeah. One class.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's crazy. One class.
I failed one class because it's accelerated. It's online. So online school is very difficult because you got to teach yourself the shit. You don't have nobody to bounce shit off of. So I called parents like, hey, see if you can get in contact with the dean up there and see if I can petition to try to get back into school. He like, bro, I can't even find anybody because I'm searching like, who am I supposed to talk to? I had nobody to talk to. I called parents like, can you call somebody up there for me? He like, bro, I have nothing for you. So after that, I'm like, I had 30 grand gone. I'm starting over again from school. I started from scratch, bro. And it took me forever to finish the master's the second time. But shit, I could have easily been like, you know what? I ain't about to go back and do this shit. You know what I'm saying? I ain't about to go back and put myself through that, spend more money, get more student loans, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I graduated, but it wasn't like easy road. I wasted years doing a fire thing. I wasted years doing whatever. But now it comes to the point to where I am now. I'm feeling like, hey, them times I was down, these highs are feeling even higher.
Yeah, you can appreciate it, right? I mean, we earn that shit. You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing that I'll say about them shortcomings and them failures, bro. Like when I just sit and finally have a chance sometimes to appreciate not necessarily just the job, because jobs come and go, but where I've gotten to based on where I was at and based on how many times I was told no. That shit is like, it's just a moment where you just really get to sit back and it's breathtaking and be like, wow, like all of that shit, all them times where, you know, I was low on faith or whatever the case may be, and I got there, you know, like people need to know, like that shit comes with the story, bro. That comes with the story. Some people are gonna make it just, you know, hole in one, but some of us aren't gonna make the hole in one, and you got to keep on going, man. And that shit is important.
I think we all, you know, have those stories, man, about, you know, perseverance, man, and being able to bounce back. You know what I'm saying? I think that too often those stories aren't told. And I think what ends up happening is it convinces people to believe that the only reason a person made it is because whether it was luck or they were just gifted, when really they had the ability for something to not work and then try again, something to not work and try again. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's difficult, man. I've had companies that failed, put me in debt, right? You know what I'm saying? Cause you know, problems within my marriage because I'm used to taking care of certain things financially and I wasn't able to because me trying to make sure everybody else was paid and things of that nature. And then moving to a new state and having to start over and now in a situation where, you know, everything's back good, everybody's doing good again. You know, sometimes what failure does is it teaches you a valuable lesson, what to do better next time, right? What to do different next time, right? Because if that happens, then really you didn't fail. That just became a learning experience. But I think sometimes in our community that when we have a situation that doesn't go the way we planned, I watch Taff, I watch my boy Ron, right? I watch Devin. I watch them boys really be relentless in applying for the jobs and the careers that they wanted to get into, right? Ron for years and years wanted to get into corrections, right? Years and years. He's like, man, go get that up, go do something else. Now he's a correction officer, right? Taff applied to at least 300, 400 police departments, right? Look, he was even applying to those little small rural towns, right? You know what I'm saying? We was like, nah, man, look into something else. Go back to school. He's a police officer. Devin, man, I want to get into sanitation, right? Waste management. Oh man, nah, man, go do something else. Now he's in waste management. And I'm talking about they chased these dreams for years, bro. So what that always says is your dream didn't give up on you. You gave up on your dream. Because the path to get there may not be straight. You may have to go this way, up a hill, down a hill, around the mountain, over some goats, over the fire. You know what I'm saying? You may have to go through a lot of adverse situations to get there. But for the culture, man, don't give up on your dreams because life is about purpose and happiness comes with purpose. When you're walking in your purpose, you happy. I brag about me, you know, for the most part, always being really in a good mood, man. Never really, you know, having too many moments that cause me depressed and stressed because I feel like I'm walking in my purpose. I love what I do. I love talking to people and helping people with their problems. So as a result, I feel good about myself because I feel like I'm helping. So we have to make sure that we're not giving up on ourselves, not giving up on our purpose. We just realize there has to be a different way of doing things.
Right. I mean, if you won't appreciate things unless you've been battle tested. And that's what we're talking about. We've been battle tested. Like we've been through like, oh, I had to put in the work to get where I'm at. I mean, if you don't put in that work, then you're not going to appreciate where you're at. The process is the process. You know what I'm saying? It happened for a reason. There's jobs that I've been turned down for, but then when I go back to like say that area, I'm glad I didn't get that job. Do you see the foolishness or the tomfoolery or the ignorance that happens in that office? I'm glad I didn't get that position. Thank you for telling me no, because this one over here was meant for me. Like you just said, Dewan, when I was walking in my purpose, I got the position that was meant for me. I don't know if you say divine intervention or how you want to look at it, but there was a reason why I interviewed better, why that worked out, and why my grit or my hunger for that job came to pass, because that's the one that was meant for me, because I battle tested and went through the other situation. So yeah, you never give up. Like you said, you never give up on your dream. You just keep on pushing through, because eventually you're going to achieve what you want if you continue to put your mind to it.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, fellas, I know we about to go ahead and wrap it up. But before we wrap it up, I want to give us all an opportunity to give our last for the culture statement. The message or the thing that you feel is important for us to know within our peoples, especially in this month. This month, Black History should be celebrated every day, especially within your household. But as a country, we get this month. So, what is your for the culture thing that you guys feel the people need to know from the brothers of Braspective?
I guess I'll go first, man. We appreciate y'all coming to check us out. Follow us on Braspective on IG, YouTube, all that subscribe stuff. Like he talked about, it's Black History Month, man. I think it's one of the times where we need to take a step back and kind of know where we came from to know where we're going. And then it's also one of them things like, let's go try to impact change. However you want to impact it, however you want to do it, whether it's coaching, whether it's being an activist, whether it's whatever it is, drop a little nuggets, go do it because we need it. You know what I'm saying? We need it. So whatever you got going on, just try to help our people. And shoot, that's all I got, man. Appreciate y'all.
Okay, I guess I'll jump in. I thought my tap was gonna go. Let me first say, I appreciate everybody that's tuned in. Please continue to subscribe, like, send comments. Please show your support. We greatly appreciate it. And then for the culture, let me say, do your homework. Before you downplay something or don't think it's going to be successful or you just selling it short. Do your own homework before you just let something go. Do your homework in regards to achieving your goals. And I would just say, continue to just thrive for those things that you want. Because I said this before and I'll say it again. You only get to do this once. We get around this world one time. And once it's over, it's over. You don't come back. It's not Mario Brothers. There's no many lives. So, take advantage of your opportunities now and make it count.
Yeah, like, subscribe, share. Just like we talked about resiliency, we're not going nowhere. The Clubhouse Conversations is coming soon. I think somebody told me about something called Cookout. That's coming soon. We're gonna stay here because this is our purpose. We all happy to do this, And then for the culture, Black families, Black love, Black marriage, Black officers, good for the community. So if you got somebody who's interested, somebody who wants to get in that field, Black officers are good for the community. I may have to come into work and wear their uniform, but I walk how I walk and I talk how I talk. I moonwalk to my car and I play Picture Me Rolling by Pac when I'm in it. You know what I'm saying? You can do what you want to do and be who you want to be. For the culture, your portion of being who you want to be is just as important as my version of being who I need to be for the culture. So get out there, continue to do that because we need thousands of different role models and leaders out here. And if you haven't watched it yet, make sure y'all get a chance to check out that Black Messiah and that American Skin. That's also very good for the culture.
Yeah, we may have to talk about that on the next episode for sure when we start talking about prison reform and things of that nature. For the culture, like, subscribe, Braspective, guys. Look, we're here to stay. We're not going nowhere. We're gonna keep these conversations coming in, and it's just us talking, right? These are our cookout conversations, our round the table conversations, and we want to make sure that people start to have an understanding of the things that Black men talk about. Man, we ain't always talking about sports and clothes and women and all that. Man, we have real conversations about life and the way they affect us, and that's why we call it Braspective, because it's the perspective of the brothers. I would say, man, we're gonna hear this again and again and again, but support Black businesses. Period. Point blank. I'm not telling you don't support the other businesses you support, but also support Black businesses, because we're always talking about in decreasing the wealth gap. That only happens when people in our community are able to become billionaires and all that, right? That only happens when we say, okay, some brothers from Atlanta opened a grocery store, right? So now they got the same stuff that Kroger got, Albertsons, Walmart, Safeway. Y'all can go there and support them. Yeah, maybe 15 cent more or 10 cent more. Yes, it's a new business. So the price in which they're getting the cheese is higher than what Walmart's getting the cheese, right? Yeah. But over time, and you support that business, now they open up another one and another one. Now they got them in California, New York, Florida. Now they're everywhere. Now they're like your neighborhood store. That only happens because we invest and we support. It's 44 or 44 plus million African Americans in this country. And if we decide to invest in Black businesses, Black banks, right, Black clothing lines, Black institutions of education, if we do that, then those institutions and those people around it grow. We need to stop being crab in the barrel, right? Because sometimes what ends up happening is Jeff has an idea, and since I don't like Jeff's idea, or I don't want Jeff to shine by himself, I'm gonna say, well, I'm gonna take his idea, I'm gonna do it differently, and I'm gonna go do it over here for myself. No, how about Jeff? Hey man, I got some ideas on how, you know, we can make your idea better. How about what's the percentage so I can buy in and be a partner in this with you? And now we take those ideas, we come together and we grow. So reach out, educate ourselves, but make sure we're supporting Black-owned businesses. Again, when you say support Black-owned business, I'm not saying don't go to those other places that you're used to, but I'm saying make sure that you invest into a Black-owned business. There's a restaurant here in Dallas called True Cocktails and Kitchens, and I think they just recently changed the name, Cocktails and Kitchens. And it made some national news because the owner, you know, told people don't be twerking in his restaurant, which I fully support.
I understand.
Food is amazing, guys. And here's the thing: the owner's Black, the all the managers are Black, and they're women and things of that nature, right? The supervisors, they're Black. The cooks, they're Black. It's a Black business. He has 20 odd something employees that he is able to make sure that they're able to take care of their family, because we go there and we support and we pay that money for that food, and the food is really good. So, and sometimes the food, when you go to a place in the beginning, may not be as good because they can't afford to buy the fresh fish or the fresh steaks, but over time they will be able to get there. So remember, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And sometimes with Black-owned businesses, let them start, support them in their starting phase. Because if we support them in their starting phase, they'll support us in their finish phase. So again, like, subscribe, follow us on Braspective. We on YouTube, we on Instagram, we on Facebook. We come to you guys every 2 weeks, every Sunday, every other Sunday with an episode. There's more to come. Our next episode, we will have a correctional officer in with us, a probation officer, parole officer, and we'll be talking about prison reform and how that looks and things of that nature. So you guys be safe, stay who you are, stay true to yourself, gain some self-awareness, and we'll holler at you later. Peace.